We're live to Istanbul now to speak to Louis Fishman, who is a professor actually at Brooklyn College City University of New York. He is an expert on Turkish affairs. As I said, Louis, when you list all those events one after the other, and that's going back only to October last year, it points to some serious problems for Turkey. I mean, on any level, you could say its number of tourists drops, the level of security for people, so much to think about.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, it's quite worrying. If we bring it back to June, right before the elections, there was also a bombing at a political rally, and then there was a bombing in, about a month later in July of activists, about 30 young activists affiliated with the HDP party were targeted. I mean, what we see is that a really quick deterioration of security in Turkey over the last year, and to tell you the truth, it doesn't seem that the government is able to stop it. Perhaps they misassessed the dangers of these. What we see though, in yesterday's bombing, I think is interesting though, is that it did hit the airport. So this was this is a really strong message that this can happen at any time, anywhere, and it also is a strong message to tourists: don't come to Turkey. On the other hand, it hits at the prestige of Turkey, which is the airport and which is Turkish Air, which is turning into this huge international company. And even though tourists aren't coming to Turkey, they certainly are flying Turkish Air. So now, for example, just if we talk about the Turkish-Israeli reconciliation, Turkish Air has always flown, no matter what, from the Gaza flotilla up to today, 5 flights a day from Israel. I mean, they fly as many flights as El Al does almost from Israel. So what I'm saying is this is worrying, because what people are going to start thinking twice about is even taking Turkish Air. So I think this is a new step above, and we all step up. And unfortunately, we see this was much more organized, well planned, that I think it really took people by surprise.
Yeah. The feeling seems to be, Louis, and this certainly is what the Turkish government is saying, is that this is an ISIL attack. Even if that is the case, you've got dual problems, don't you? Because the Kurdish factions are active as well, and you can't sort of take your eye off one to deal with the other, because they're both seemingly striking and causing problems almost equally. And
yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, they really find themselves in a problem here. They have a real serious problem here. But it's not just that there's terrorist attacks, it's also that the army's engaged in fighting with the PKK in the southeast. I mean, if we look at the numbers, I mean, what we see is almost a really unstable, or what I call a stability within stability. The government is stable, but if we look at the numbers, you have over 500 security officers killed, security officials, whether it's army or whether it's police, killed this year. You have, hundreds of civilians in these terror attacks. And then you have civilians, if you look at the human rights reports of, let's say, Amnesty International, you'll see that, civilians are also dying in the southeast. So if we put the numbers together, it really turns into a huge story that's really not looked upon in a lot of the media. I mean, so what perhaps the Turkish government could do is at one hand, move forward and try to calm the internal dissent in the country. Because, for example, when human rights activists just last week get arrested for anti-terror laws, and then they're put in solitary confinement, well, that's not going to create a sense of unity whatsoever against the real targets. Selahattin Demirtas, the head of the HDP, has a criticized attack and has come against the attacks on civilians. But if his parliamentary immunity is lifted and he's arrested, well, that's just going to cause more instability.
Yeah.
What we see, perhaps, and that's with the making up the Israel-Turkey reconciliation, let me finish quickly, and the apology to Russia, is that Turkey is interested in moving forward. And that's why this was so disappointing at this time.
Louis Fishman, great to talk to you and get those thoughts from you. Thank you so much for your time. Just a little